Is the energy you experience during your qigong practice real, or is it just your imagination? That's going to be what we're going to talk about in this episode of Qi Life. So this is a question that I get asked fairly often. Not normally by students straight away when they're just starting, but normally after they've been practicing for a little while. They've been practicing qigong for a little while, and they start to experience some interesting things, and they wonder, is this real, or just something that I'm imagining because I want to, or something like that. And it's a good question to ask. There's quite a lot to this, quite a few different factors, and I actually wrote a blog post along a similar lines, which is going to go into some of those things in a little bit more detail, but then there are some parts that are going to be easier to talk about and describe in video, so that's what this vlog is for. The blog post, I talk about visualization, imagination, awareness and intention, what those are, how they're different from each other, and how they all combine together into making a true mind-body connection, because they all have a role to play. Some teachers are very, very heavily into visualization and imagining, and other teachers rightly point out that if you focus too much on that, there are risks with that. You can just delude yourself into just imagining things. But they still do have a role to play. So I guess what I want to bring out is, what role do they play? How does that work? And so I'm going to make a very simple analogy, a much more mundane analogy that will help you to understand how this works in terms of energy. So a mind-body connection is what we're really after in our qigong practice. The energy flowing through us sits in between those two. It's a result of the body, but it's directed by the mind. And when we create a strong connection between our mind and body, we start to both be aware of the energy and start to have control and be able to direct it and do useful things with it to make us healthier, stronger, more vital, and so on. So how does visualization and imagination fit in with this mind-body connection thing? So a very simple example. I have my hand here, and for example, I want to move my finger. Very simple example. I'm not being sarcastic, it's just to make draw the comparison. Hopefully it's helpful. So if I want to move my finger, I can do this and move my finger. And that is something that if someone's receiving physical therapy or something like that and they've lost use of their finger or some other part of the body, this is a valid method in order to get things moving. Just actually physically move it. To some extent, this is what we're doing when we do different movements in our qigong practice. We're physically moving stuff to get the energy going, and that has a very clear physical effect on the energy. But we want a more sophisticated relationship with our energy than that. So what else can we do? Physically get it moving, great. But what if I want to have more control over that movement and I don't yet have control over it? Well, something I might do is visualize my finger moving or imagine it moving, right? This is useful. Now, if I just visualize my finger moving and it doesn't actually move, but I visualize it and I fool myself that it did move when it didn't, that's not going to be helpful to me. It's just making me delusional. But what we're trying to do using visualization and imagination is start to make this connection between our mind and our body in a very literal way. Now, if I visualize or imagine my finger moving and then also actually move it, I'm creating an association here. I'm starting to make a connection there. Beyond that, I can actually start to, as I start to make this connection, visualize it, and I might start to actually get it moving a little bit. I'm starting to have a true connection between my mind and body, and then as I get stronger, I can move it more freely because I'm getting the hang of this now, and eventually I can start to do all sorts of fancy things and have quite sophisticated control as I form a strong connection between my mind and my body. It's really the same with our energy. Most of us, though, it's a more subtle thing because it's not something that we generally have been brought up paying a lot of attention to. And so we're tuning into something that we have little awareness of to begin with and very little control over to begin with, and we're trying to make the link. So we start doing really physical things. So an example is to feel our energy, we might like clap our hands together so that we bring the energy to our hands and then feel our hands. Somewhat more subtly, we might do different movements that stretch and pull and open to get the energy moving. But with time and practice, as we then engage our mind with these movements, with what's happening, we start to make that connection, where we start to have a more direct relationship with the energy, and we are able to direct and control it in a more straightforward way. Does that make sense? So, yes, visualization, imagination can have their dangers or their pitfalls if you just fool yourself into thinking something's happening that's not happening. But they're also really valuable as a tool to help us to make the link so that our mind then directs things to happen as opposed to just imagining them happening. So hopefully that's a useful analogy for you to help you to understand a little bit more about making this link between your mind and body to work with your energy. The question to some extent still remains, how do you know that you're not just imagining it? That you're not just imagining your finger moving or your energy doing something rather than it's actually moving. And I guess there are a couple of parts to this in terms of how you can know. Part of it is just experience. As you do it more often and it becomes repeatable for you, it becomes predictable and repeatable, you start to have confidence that that's actually happening. Part of it is sometimes removing some of your limiting beliefs, because you may have beliefs that energy is this weird, airy, fairy thing and not realize that it's a very real thing. I often talk when we're talking about it, and this is just parts of energy, how we generate energy through internal movement creates vibration. Activity of the nerves is electricity, which creates magnetism. We generate heat from our cellular activity and so on. These are just very real, normal aspects of energy, which we start to be more aware of. And there's others as well, but as we have more exposure to them, we just accept, hey, this is just something normal. It's not something weird that I'm deluding myself about. Something else that can be really helpful is, of course, to talk to people who have more experience than you, or even people who are just doing the same things as you, and compare your experiences. Because if other people are saying, yes, this is what happens when you do this, then you can start to have confidence that, oh, that thing that I'm experiencing, it's a real thing. So having that ability to talk to other people, to share experiences, and to ask questions from people who are more experienced is really useful as well. But a lot of it is about just getting in, practicing, and having experience for yourself. And as you do that, you start to have confidence in it. For myself, I can remember, some of the things that, were very unusual to me in the past. The first time I experienced it, just going, what the heck is this? And trying to do things in multiple different positions or environments just to make sure that, there wasn't some trick of the light, or maybe there wasn't a breeze or something that was affecting what I was experiencing. It was like, how is that happening? This isn't normal for me. But then as you do it again and again, you go, that's actually just something completely normal once you've experienced it for the first time. And so if it's an interesting world to start to explore when these things are brand new to you. Very helpful if you can share with other people, as I mentioned. So maybe a couple of options for you on that. If you can go to qigong classes where you live, that's going to be awesome. You're going to be able to share with other people. I did recently set up the Qigong Everyday Facebook group. It's not really designed for in-depth teaching or anything like that, but it is for support and encouragement and things like that. And so if you have a question you're not quite sure about, there's tons of people in there who are probably going to be happy to answer you and give you some feedback, which will encourage you on your qigong journey. And also doing formal courses. You know, the Long White Cloud Qigong online courses that we run, we have Q&A every week where you can ask questions and get feedback on what's happening to help you to clarify and understand what's going on. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe it's useful to you. Maybe you know someone else that would be useful to help them with their Qigong practice. If you did, it would be great if you like, comment, subscribe, share the video, things like that. Help the channel to grow. I do hope to reach more people, help them along their Qigong journey with this vlog. Also, I will put the link to that blog post in the description below. Some things are just easier to sort of articulate in writing, and something that's easier to have a video and talk and stuff like that, so you might want to check that out as well. Okay, I look forward to seeing you on the next one.